So we're on Kufn and Dalet Amud Aleph, right in the middle, about 14 lines down, it says Itmar. That's what we're up to. I'm sorry, no. Am I right? No, it's a little further. It's the next thing. B'chein Amar Rabba Raya Be'edim. That's what we're up to. B'chein Amar Rabba Raya Be'edim. About 5 lines past what I just said. You got it? Yeah. So we have to do a little chazara because this Gemara is going to be folding back on itself and changing what our understandings were, right? So we had our Mishnah. Our Mishnah had said a machlekes between a mayor and the chachamim in a case of somebody, Mishnah back on Kufn and Gimel, somebody wrote a shtar giving away his possessions. Reuven is the giver. He's the one who wrote the shtar. And he says, I'm giving all my possessions to Shimon. And now Reuven is standing hale and hearty in front of us. He's healthy. And he's saying, listen, when I wrote that, even though I wrote everything I own goes to Shimon, I was a shchav mirah at that time. So it's not a valid nesina. And the Shimon is saying, no, you gave it as a regular matana, a matnas beria. And there's nothing in the shtar that indicates one way or the other. So we say, Rameya says, at least in this version, we're going to have a different girsa of the Mishnah. But now, at this point, the Gemara is saying, Rameya says that it's incumbent on Reuven. Reuven, you're trying to say you were a shemira. You have no proof. All you have is a shtar. You have to bring a raya that's the case, that you are actually a shemira. The lashon is sarach lahevi raya shemira. The Chacham disagree and they say, they say, no, you Shimon are trying to take Reuven's money from him, right? You're saying Reuven gave everything he owns to you, and it wasn't a matnas chaver, it was a matnas beria. You're hamaitzi mechaver olav haraya. You have to bring a raya to what you said, what you're saying. Yeah. Now the Gemara the Mishnah doesn't say what he means when he says a raya. That's going to be the machlekes in the Gemara. But first, we said that we brought a machlekes between Rav Yaakov and Rav Nassim. Right? We said, and this is what we. So let's actually we could skip that, and we'll go back to it in a second. We said, and in the bottom of Daf Kufn and Gimel, the Gemara brought the second part of the Mishnah. The Chum say that in this case, Shimon, who's the recipient, the person who's getting the matana, has to bring a raya. We go to machlekes. What is the raya? What kind of raya does he have to bring? So he said, Rav Huna says the raya has to be be'edim. He has to bring edim that it's true that it was a matnas beria, not a matnas shemir. The Gemara explains that this is going on what we had said on the previous Amud, which we just skipped now a little bit, that this is dependent on the machlekes Reb Nassan and Reb Yaakov, where Reb Meir, who says that Reuben has to bring a raya to prove that he's a shchemera. He holds like Reb Nassan, who says that since he's currently healthy, he has to prove that he was earlier sick. You're trying to say that the chazaka is that you're now healthy. So chances are you were early when you wrote this. You were also healthy. There is a shtar here, so l'chayr it's a matnas beria. So you have to bring a raya. You have to bring edim that's not so. And the Rabbanon hold like Rabbi Yaakov back from Kufn and Gimel Amid Beis, that he holds that the chazaka is the other way around. That since Reuven was the holder of the money, and now Shimon is coming to take it away from him, he's the muhsik. The chazaka is that it was his money, and the chazaka and therefore Shimon is the one who has to bring a raya, bring edim that it was a matnas beria. That was Rav Huna's pshat in the Gemara. Rav Chizda, Rav Huna have a different pshat. They say the Rai is Bekiyam Ashtar. And this is what we're really going to be focusing on a lot for the next blot. That they're arguing about Moed B'Shtar Shakasu Tzarech L'Kaim. Whether someone who is Moed that he wrote a star has to be Mekayim. So, and that's the case over here. This Ruvain, who says he wrote the star, he's agreeing he wrote the star, but he's saying that, but even so, I shouldn't have to pay the money because I was a shchemera and I recovered. So the question is like this: everyone holds like Rav Nosson that really, since he's currently healthy, we assume that he was healthy earlier. So really, Reuven is the one who has to prove that he was a shchemera. But he's saying there's no. I'm claiming that this star is not a valid star because I was a shchemera. The question is, does it need a kiyum? So Rameir, who says that he has to bring a raya, he holds that someone who is moed in a star, the claimant, in our case Shimon, doesn't have to bring a raya anymore. He doesn't have to be mekayim the star. Since you were moed in it, even though now you're claiming that you were a shchemera, I no longer have to be mekayim the star. It's considered a valid star because of your haidah. And the Rabbanan hold, no, moed b'shtar shekasu still has to be mekayim. It's even though I was moed about it, but I'm also claiming that I was a shchemera, and therefore it's I don't have to bring. There's no need for the claimant, the person who's saying that this was a valid star, to bring a kiyum, since the person who wrote the star is maskim that he wrote the star. He's just saying that for outside reasons it wasn't a valid star because I was a shchemera and it wasn't a valid star. And then we brought this a raya from a brisa where we see that this is a similar machlekes between Rameir and so we're saying that the machlekes remain the chum is whether moed b'shtar shekasu tzarech l'kaim, right? And we say we have the same thing legabi in a brisa of ein emanon lepoisle, where an aide came and said, I signed on this star, but however, I was a cotton at the time that I signed on the star. So again, it's the same thing of a pesha asa, that just like we said, the Reuven who says I wrote the star, but however, I'm also saying I'm a shchemera. So he was the one who said that the star is good. So now when he's saying it's no good, the only reason why it was good was because of him. He was moed. So the question is whether we say he has the ability to undo his haidah by saying, but I'm also a shchemera. So the same thing with an aide who says, I did sign on the star, but now I'm telling you that I am a cotton, and therefore my testimony on the star is worthless. That will be the same question. And we said that although the question was that should be a right, why do we have to say the machlekes twice? So we wanted to be mechalik because maybe Adam, since even though they're the ones being mekayim it now, they can later go ahead and say, even you're trying to say that once they were mekayim it, the fact that they say that they were ketanim is going to be irrelevant. We don't believe them anymore because once they said it's mekuyim. Say no, Adam are different because if Adam come in and they say Adis say that it's not Adam have a power, they could come in and say that the original thing that it says in the star that this loan was made, they could say we were there and it never happened. It means they have the power, and Ada has more kayach than someone who's coming who's a baldavar and coming to say about what he had admitted before. That's where we're up to. They've just brought us up to the current place. So where are we up to? B'chein Amar Rabba. So it's halfway down in Kufn Dalet. B'chein Amar Rabba, Raya Be'ed. So he had said two ways of understanding the machlokes in our Mishnah over here. So I have to buy myself a new Gemara. It's very hard to deal with how many different pages there are in the article. I don't know, my Gemara just disappeared. B'chein Amar Rabba, Raya Be'ed. Rabba understands the machlokes in the Mishnah the same way as Rav Huna did on the top of the Amud, that the machlokes between Rav Meir and the Rabbanim and the Chachamim is that the machlokes of Yaakov and Rav Nassan. And when we say that if Reuven, who is the giver, if Shimon is trying to take away from Reuven, he has to bring a raya with Adim, because since Reuven is the one who's holding on to it, he is believed. We don't hold, the Chachamim don't hold like Reb Nosson, that we go after the one who, what the current status is to determine who's the muhsik, but rather we say he's the muhsik since it's his possessions. Amalei Abaye, my time. What is the reason? Why are we understanding it like this? Why are we saying that he brings a raya be'ed? Meaning, in the Mishnah, we said that the Reuven gave a star to Shimon, saying he's giving all his possessions to him, and we're saying now, if Shimon wants to take away from Reuven, he has to bring a raya with Adam. Since there's normally a lashon that's put into a star that says, a person says, I'm writing the star and I'm perfectly healthy. I'm not a shchemira. He says, I'm writing this as I'm still able to walk in the shuk. So the fact that that's missing, maybe that's why it indicates that he's really a shchemira, and that's why Shimon has to bring a raya to bolster his case. Shchamina shchemira havi. So the Gemara Adarabba, for the fact that when someone is a shchemira, there's a lashon that you usually put in that lashon. He says, I'm writing this as I'm lying sick in bed. Shmamina beryav. So that indicates he's a berya. So in the lack of any lashon, there's a specific lashon that you usually put when you make a matnas shchemira, and there's a specific lashon that you do when you do a matnas berya. Neither of those were present. So it's not dispositive the fact that no lashon was there, because the lack of a lashon could indicate both ways. So therefore, we leave the money by its owner, which is by Reuven, and therefore Shimon has to bring a raya to get it away from Reuven. The Rav Yochanan Amaraya be'edem, Rav Shimon Lakish Amaraya b'kiyam hashtat. This machlokes about what the reasoning of the Chachamim in our Mishnah was, that we said on the top of the Amud that Rav Huna says the raya is be'edin, and Rav Chizda Rabba Rav Huna say the raya is kiyam hashtat. The machlokes is dependent on whether you hold moide b'shtar shekasu tzarich l'kaimoi. This is the same machlokes that Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish have. Rabbi Yochanan says, like Rav Huna, that when the Chacham say that Shimon has to bring a raya, it means he has to bring Eidin. And Rav Shimon Lakish says the raya is b'kiyam hashtar. That means that everyone who holds like Rav Nassan, that really we would say that the Shimon has the better of the argument, since Reuven is currently healthy. He was probably currently healthy before. However, Rav Shimon Lakish says, since Reuven is being maskim that he wrote the star, all Shimon has to do is being mekayim the star. Since he was made b'shtar shekasvai, the kiyam star will be sufficient to allow Shimon to win over Reuven. Eser Rabbi Yochanan Reish Lakish. Rabbi Yochanan asks Reish Lakish. He has the kash on Reish Lakish. You're trying to understand that the reasoning of the Chachamim is whether the reasoning of the Chacham that the raya that the the raya of Shimon is that he's just going to bring a raya, that he's mekayim the star, Because the only problem here is that Shimon says, Shimon is saying, I'm sorry, that Reuven is claiming that it was a shchemira, but if he's Mekayim the star, then that overcomes it. Correct that. Ma'aseh Bnei Brak, the Echad Shemachah B'Nichseyav, the story in Bnei Brak, with somebody, Yaakov was Binyamin's father, and Yaakov died, and Binyamin inherited Yaakov's possessions, and then Binyamin turned around and sold the possessions to Moshe. So now, Umes. Umes, and he died. Ubo b'nei mishpacha. I'm sorry. And va'amdu b'nei mishpacha, and the people of the family, Binyamin's relative came, and then Binyamin died. Right? Binyamin was the one who inherited, and he sold his possessions to Moshe. And Binyamin's brother, Yosef, came and said, that Binyamin, who had sold this property that he got from Yaakov, was a katan. A katan cannot sell his possessions. So you, Moshe, you're claiming you get it, or you're trying, well, we're going to see who, like the Gemara says at this point, that at this point, Yosef, Binyamin's brother, is still holding on to the possessions, to the karka. And now Moshe is saying, I have a star from Binyamin that he sold me the possessions, and they say back to him, Yosef says back to him, we don't have to give it to you, even though Binyamin sold it to you. He was a katan, it wasn't a good sale. They went and asked Rabbi Kiva, what's the din? What's the din to check? Let's go, this sounds a little ghoulish. Let's go dig up Binyamin, and maybe it was, he wasn't buried yet, I don't know. But let's go, the question was, we're talking about someone who was older than 13, he was under 20, and there was a shaila if he had Shtei Cyrus, if he had the Simone Gedula. Even if he's over 13, if he doesn't have Shtei Cyrus, he's not going to be a gadol. So let's go physically check if he's a gadol after his misa. Amalhem, iatem rishayim lenavli. So Rabbi Kiva said to the purchaser, to Moshe, who's trying to get the karka that he paid for, said to him, you can't go and defile Binyamin's body by going to check it. Even if you checked it, it wouldn't help, because after Misa, the Simonim could change. He could get the Shtei Cyrus even after Misa. So if he doesn't have the Shtei Cyrus, it doesn't prove that he wasn't a gadol before and it could have fallen out. It doesn't prove anything. So how is this a raya? So Rabbi Yechon says, according to me, that I say the raya over here is by Edom. That means that I don't hold that the question has to do with whether Moed B'Shtasha Kas V'Tzarech L'Kaimoi. Kiven the Amal L'Kuchas, I see Edom, B'Lei Ashkahu. Since you asked the Edom, you asked the L'Kuchas, you asked Moshe, you claim that there was a sale. Bring a raya that he was a gadol, and they didn't find Edom. That's why they came back to Rabbi Kiva. They said, let us check. We don't have Edom, but let's check whether he's actually a gadol, and then we'll get this karka that we had paid for. El Didach, according to you, meaning according to you, Reish Lakish, that you say the issue is the Amar Raya B'Kiyam Ashtar, and you say that all the lekeach has to do is be mekayim the star. He proves that there are two Edom on the star, and they're admitting that then at that point we have a star, and they're just saying that the Edom, even though they signed on the star, it was ketanim lamu leboitkai the kaimish tarai v'luko nifsei. Let's be mekayim the star, And the Rashbam explains, if once we Makayim the star, we will say that the star, no, Adam would not be signed onto a star unless they know that the person who was a party to the star was a gadol. So once you Makayim the star, that will be a sufficient raya for on behalf of Shimon, of Moshe, who bought the karka from Binyamin. Look with Benichse. So that is Rabbi Yechon's kasha and Reish Lakish. According to you, why do they say go be baidik? Let him just be Mekayim the star. Let Moshe be Mekayim the star, and then he'll be able to get the money from the Bnei Mishpach. So from Yosef. So do you really hold? He says no. So Reish Lakish answers back. You misunderstood the case of it. You are understanding that currently the assets are in the control of Yosef, Binyamin's brother, and the Lekeach, Moshe is trying to take it away from him. That's not the case. Because of Lekuchas Amari, no, Nichse B'Chesed Lekuchas Kaimi. The Nechasim are in the possession of the purchaser, meaning in the possession of Moshe, who bought it from Binyamin, and they're claiming, and now the Mishpacha of Binyamin, Yosef, is coming to say, because Bnei Mishpacha v'Kamari, they're the ones who are coming to take it away from the purchaser. So if that's the case, you can't say, go be Mekayim the star. That would be that would go against what they're trying to do. They're trying to say, the Bnei Mishpacha is trying to take it away from the purchaser. Being Mekayim the star obviously would only defeat their purpose. So that's why they have to bring Edom. That's why Reb Akiva said, therefore they said, let's go be Baidik, because that's our best chance. We'll prove that he was a gadol, and then we'll get the money away from the Bnei Mishpach. And Reb Akiva said, you can't do it. So, and Reish Lakish says, Hachinami Mistab, and L'chayra, I'm right, that this is what's going on, that it's the Bnei Mishpach who are trying to get away from the Kupas. The Kamalu Yata Mishayim Lenavle. Rabbi Akiva said back to them, you're not allowed to defile the guf of this mace of Binyamin v'shtiku, and they didn't dispute this. Why? If you'll say it's the family that was asking to get the money back from the lekuchas, that's why they were quiet. Rabbi Akiva said, "You're his family. Why are you going and digging him up? It's for money. You don't go do such a thing. It's not appropriate." If you say it's a third party, someone who bought from Binyamin, Amai Shaski, why would they be quiet when Rabbi Akiva says that you don't want to, it's not the right thing to do to be menavel your Binyamin? It's a very interesting thing. It's like it's not, Rabbi Akiva wasn't saying that, you should do chesed. It's the wrong thing to do, to go dig up a mace unnecessarily. He's saying it's your mishpacha. So your mishpacha, you shouldn't be doing such a thing of going and digging them up. But if it's someone else who's a third party, they could say, listen, this is, halacha is on my side. I paid money for this thing, and now I want to get what I paid for. It's not my concern if it's going to end up being a little less appropriate for him. I'm sorry, but that's the business is business. So from the fact that they accepted such a taina, it's vice that he was talking to the Bnei Mishpacha and not to the other party. You find this very strange, right? It's because we're so eingeweiht about kavod hameis. But lamaisa, there's halacha is also that if there's money at stake, you do what you have to do.
But isn't there another sword that it's going to be useless anyways because things change?
Oh, so that's exactly what the Gemara says. That is what the Gemara then says. No, so this is all to say we all bring this as a raya that it's mistaber, that he's talking to the Bnei Mishpacha and not talking to the other side, to the family, to the third party, because otherwise it wouldn't make sense to say limvo v'nivel. So Gemara imishum ha lo yireh. So the Gemara says that's not a right. Hachikama lahu chada diyat v'sham lenavle. First of all, it's not appropriate to be menavel. And if you'll say, I don't care, va'oid And if you'll say, we don't care, there's money at stake, so you got to do what you got to do. It's Rabbi Akiva said, first of all, don't defile the mace in this case, because it's not going to help you anyway. First of all, it's not appropriate to do, and you probably shouldn't have even asked us. Give up your $10 that you were owed. And if you'll say, but Lamaisa, this is the halacha, he says to them, it's not going to help anyway, like you said, because the simanim changed lacha misa, so it's not going to be effective. So don't bother.
So it's not also to dig up. There's no issue.
Right. That's what we're saying. It's not also to dig up. It was a suggestion to the bnei mishpacha. This is not the right thing to do. This is your brother, your son. You don't need. We shouldn't do it. That was the Gemara's suggestion. The Gemara says in the end, it's even talking to the people who it's not halacha that you can't do it. But they said to him, you don't want to dig him up because anyway, it's not going to help you. You could really skip to the second argument already because you should have just said it's not going to help. Shimon Lakish asked Rabbi Yochanan. Shimon Lakish asked Rabbi Yochanan the following question: that which we learned in the Mishnah Bar Kapara, which is a separate set of brises. Someone who was sitting on a sada. Ruvain was happily ensconced in a sada. He was plowing and harvesting. And everyone assumes it's Ruvain's. But Karlov Achar Iru. And one day Shimon shows up and says, this is not your field. Loimer Shalihu. This is my field. And Ruvain, who everyone had assumed owned this in perpetuity, says, no, it was once upon a time Shimon's field, but here's my deed. And he says to Shimon, you sold me, or you sold me this field, or you gave it to me in matana, and here's the deed. If Shimon says, when Reuben produces this star, saying that Shimon sold it to him, Shimon says, I never saw the star. This is a mezuyev star. It's a fraud. It's a forgery. In that case, Reuben has to be Mekayim the star, right? A star that's not Mekayim, that doesn't have the signatures of the Eidim corroborated, they haven't been validated, is not a good star. So if Reuben wants to use the star to get it to say, and he's saying he admits he got it from Shimon, he has to prove that the star is a good star. Im Amar, however, if Shimon says, star pasim huzeh, a star amana shemachartilach, he's not saying that it's a forged star. But rather he says it's a star that I wrote, but I wrote the star giving this property to Ruvain. Not either it was a star pasim, which is sometimes people would write like a letter of a star saying that this belongs to my friend, that I'm giving him this $1 million property, and then the friend could go and show it to people and he'll get treated more respectfully in business. It wasn't really intended to give the property to the other person. He said, listen, I'm not giving you my property, but if you want to show up to a business thing and say, I own the Empire State Building, and therefore they'll treat you with more respect and they'll give you more credence, you could do so. So that was the star pasim, or it was a star amana, where Reuven had given, that Shimon had given, says, I gave the star to you, Reuven, on this field, but I gave it to you with the understanding that, if we come to an agreement later that you're going to buy this property, you'll already have the star. But it wasn't intended that I was actually using the star to sell it to you. So we had this in the Gemara before. You're really not allowed to use a star amana for obvious reasons. There's a lot of problems. But I think we said that a star amana is also to put into play. But he says he did it. So for either one of these reasons, this star, even though it was actually written, he's conceding that the star was written, he's saying it's not a valid star to convey this property to you, Reuben. You never gave me the money for the star amana. I gave it to you in anticipation that you were going to pay me for this karka, but you never did, and therefore the shtar amana, even though it's a valid shtar, doesn't make it that you own it. So im yesh edim ala haredim, if he has edim that say that it's true that that it was only a shtar pasam or shtar amana, then Einachanami, Reuben has to give back the karka to Shimon. V'im lav halachachar shtar. But if not, you follow the shtar. The shtar says that Shimon gave it to Reuben, so now it belongs to Reuben. So Zok Gemara, we're saying that we're going to trust the shtar. What's going on here? Well, so what time are we starting? Give a little time. Yeah. Okay. Oh, after that. Okay. Lamer and Meir, are we saying that this brisa is going like Rameir? The Amma might have Shashakaso in Sarkal Kamai, below Rabbanan. So it comes out that this is going like Rameir, who says since Shimon was maskim that he wrote the shtar, but he's saying that it's not a kosher shtar because the shtar man or shtar pasim. Therefore, Reuven does not have to be Mekayim since Shimon was moida to the truth of the shtar. Not like the Rabbanan, because in our Mishnah we had a machlekes Rameir and the Rabbanan. So how could you say he passes like a mayor connected the Rabbanan? Amalei, Shani Aimer, Divrei Hakol moida b'shasha kasru ain't tzarich l'kayim. Rabbi Yochanan answered back to Reish Lakish, I'll tell you why. Because I think everyone agrees moida b'shasha kasru ain't tzarich l'kayim. Practic Gemara. So this is obviously connected. We said that Rabbi Yochanan had disagreed with Reish Lakish. He said Reish Lakish, Rabbi Yochanan had said moida b'shasha kasru is the machlokes between the Rabbanon and Reb Meir. How can you say that even Reb Meir holds moida b'shasha kasvai? I'm sorry, even the Chacham hold moida b'shasha kasvai ain't a tzarich l'kayim. Practic Gemara mithlik pligi. We had this already. We already said that this was a machlokes between Reb Meir and the Rabbanon. We had said that according to both Reish Lakish and I think it was Rabba and Rabba Bar Rav Huna, that Rav Chizda, I think, and Rabba Rav Huna, they both say that the machlokes, that the reason of the Mishnah is because of moida b'shasha kasru tzarich l'kayim. And we brought a raya from this Mishnah, Tanan Ein Amanim L'Paislei. We said Legabe Edim that come and say, and they say in Edis, but they say we were katanim. We said that's also dependent on that same machlokes. And we said Divrei Meir Chacham Nemanim. Chacham say you are Neman. So we saw that was a machlokes that the Chachamim hold you are Neman, you are tzarich l'kayim. The Chacham Medushash Kasvoi, you are tzarich l'kayim. Amalei edim alimi omerishtayu iu kol kamina. So you say the same teretz like we had the same chilik like we had suggested before. We asked why do we have to say this to prove again that it's a machlokes between the Rabbanan and the Rameir, Legabe whether Shasha Kasvoi tzarich l'kayim. That we said that extra case was necessary because we wanted to say even though it's talking about edim, that's edim are more believed when edim say that they wrote the shtar because they edim are stronger than a baldav. So now we're saying that Rabbi Yochanan says even though that we see over there that's the machlokes between Rameir and the Chachamim, that's only a machlokes when the edim are the ones who are coming and saying that it's not true, and therefore it's tzarich l'kayim. But the Chachamim would be maskim in a case where it's the baldavar. Then in that case, once he admitted that the shtar was written, it's no longer tzarich l'kayim. Amalei v'alei mimshach mishimcha amru. We have in your name that you said iru b'nei bishpacha. In our specific case that we were talking about the b'nei mishpacha, we said about before with the case of the b'nei mishpacha where they were saying that our brother who sold the property was a katan. So they're being maskim that the shtar was written to give away to sell the karka, and the Bnei Mishpacha claimed that he was a katan, and you said that the Bnei Mishpacha have the right of it when they say that the star is not a good star because he was a katan. You're saying everyone agrees, if we're not talking about Edom, if we're talking about the Baldover, that it's Sarach L'Kaimah. That it's Ein Sarach L'Kaimah. And the star should be good. So how could they be Ma'ar? Amalei Zu Elazar. Yefan says back to him, that was a Elazar, my Talmud who said that, but I don't agree with. Ani Lo Yamati. I never said. Omar Rav Zera. Rav Zera says, listen, it's a little strange now because Reb Zera is really saying a different shot in what happened to Reb Yochanan. It sounds almost like Reb Zera is arguing on Reb Yochanan. Amar Reb Zera, im yachpa Reb Yochanan b'Reb Elazar. Talmida Reb Yochanan could argue, could say, I don't agree with the words of Elazar, my Talmud, who says that Maskell says that I say that everyone agrees that you don't need Ein Sarach L'Kaimah. Yichba Reb Yanai. Could he disagree with Rabbi Rabbi, who was his Rabbi, the Amr Rabbi Yanai, Amr Rabbi? Moed b'shtasha kasu tzarach l'kaimah. Rabbi Yanai said b'shem Rabbi, Moed b'shtasha kasvai dalid tzarach l'kaimah. He has to be kaimah. Amar lei Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi lei sen yuzu. What about our Mishnah? And we say there's no raya except for Bikim Ashtar. So he's understanding it. Rabbi Yochanan says he has to be Mekayim the star. So Vaistais, he holds Editzarach L'Kaimah. So Rabbi Zera has a different shot in what happened here. Baram, they're on Divrei Rabbeinu Yosef. We have to understand like Rabbeinu Yosef. The Amar Rabbeinu Yosef, Amar Rabbi Yudam Shmuel, Zu Divrei Chachamim. He says this is the words of the Chachamim who say in our Mishnah that Ma'id b'shtasha kasu ain't tzarach l'kaimah. Rabbi Meir ayim Ma'id b'shtasha kasu tzarach l'kaimah. And then the Gemara, so they have it exactly the opposite. That the Chachamim are the ones who say ain't tzarach l'kaimah. That means that once the person admitted that he wrote the star, there's no need to be Mekayim. Even if he's claiming that he's a Shchemira, or he's claiming that Edom or they're saying, or the Mishpacha saying he's the Katan, and Rameh is the one who's saying my Divrei HaKoil. If that's the case, that we're saying that Machlekes are the other way around. We had said before that Reb Yochanan had tried to say that everyone holds Moed B'shtasha Kasvu Ein Tzarech L'Kaimah. So what are we saying? That Divrei HaKol, Moed B'shtasha Kasvu Ein Tzarech. We're saying it's only the Chachamim. Rameh disagrees. My Divrei HaKol, the Rabbanon like Rameh, Divrei HaKol. They want to say that the Rabbanon connected Rameh is the Divrei HaKol. That's all it meant. It didn't mean that Rameh is Masmas. In our Mishnah, we say exactly the other way around. In our Mishnah, the Chacham said that we side with the giver. In our case, the nice and the matana. Even though he's the one who's saying that he's saying that it was the star. He's being masculine with the star. He's saying I was a shtemira. Even so, I was saying I'm and he wins. So it sounds like they're saying that what it says Yataka have to switch around who the shitas of our Mishnah. But Tanya we also have from the case of the Edom that we see that the riots are exactly the other way around. So it says we have to turn that around also. In fact, Rabbi Yochanan himself, when he said his shita, he said that all they have to do is bring a raya with Edom, right? In the case of the Maisa B'Bnei Brak, with the I think which was the Bnei Mishpacha. So you have to switch that around. So Rabbi Yochanan is actually the one who says that if you're Mekayim the star, that's sufficient. What about the kasha that Rabbi Yochanan had asked to Reish Lakish back on Amid Aleph? And so now we're saying that Rabbi Yochanan is saying the Shita of Reish Lakish. Reish Lakish is saying the Shita of Rabbi Yochanan. Now, look, how can we say Rabbi Yochanan? So we're going to say that the machlokes, the kasha that Rabbi Yochanan has on Reish Lakish was really a kasha of Reish Lakish on Rabbi Yochanan. Doesn't make any. So is that what we do? So tomorrow, loy. According to me, that I say that you could be Mekayim the star with that when you Mekayim the star, that's sufficient. That then we can understand why the lekuchas, the purchasers, actually got their hands on this karka. You have to bring it. They would have to bring Adam to prove that he was a gadol. They don't have any Adam, so how did they get their hands on the nechasim? Amalei, no, he said so. Rish Lakish sent back to him. That's different. Over there, you're saying that how did the lekuchas get the nechasim? The fact that the bnei mishpachas are arguing on it and saying he's a katan, that's not a good argument. Micah army katan, they're trying to say he's a katan. That's not a good taina because since once they're mekayim the star, that should be enough. You don't need Adam in that case because Adam would never have signed on to the star unless he was a gadol. They don't do a star in a case where there are parties that are not capable. Okay, I'm going to stop over here. This is now we're going to go back weiter into it a little bit. I wanted to finish this topic because I know it's very, very, very complicated to follow all the back and forth and switching and what the sheetas are. But